more books. What's up, guys? Jason here, aspiring entrepreneur, showing you the day in the life of a budding entrepreneur. And I've got a relatively boring day for you guys, a lot of just deep work. So I'm recording this early in the morning so I can get into that, stay focused. But before I do, I wanted to share two books that I recently finished reading and are due tomorrow at the library, so I kind of had to speed read finish. First one is The Thank You Economy, and the second one is Jab, Jab, Right Hook, both by Gary Vaynerchuk, who is a social media genius. So, quick overview. Thank You Economy, all about how not to be a jerk to your customers and why it's so important to respond to everyone who you interact with on your social media channel. So essentially he just goes into what real customer service looks like. Think about the difference between what you call when you call into your cable company and when you walk into a restaurant, like night and day in terms of how the customer service reps or the difference between a customer service rep and a waiter. So we want to be a lot more like waiters, being really attentive to our customers' needs and responding even when they aren't happy. So that's book number one. Now, the second book, Jab, Jab, Right Hook, it takes a little bit of a different approach, more hands-on approach. Disclaimer, I read the beginning and the end simply because I was running out of time, and B, I want to listen to what little audience I have to build my strategy, and I don't want examples from other brands bleeding into what I ultimately do. And that's something very similar to what Gary does. Even on his vlogs, he talks about how he doesn't watch anybody else. So that's why I skipped the center on purpose. Although there are great examples in here. If you're just starting out from scratch and you're like, I have no idea what this looks like, then I definitely recommend reading the whole thing. So with that in mind, the big takeaway I wanted to share with you guys is the difference between the jab and the right hook. So the easiest way is, for an example, you're scrolling through a business Facebook page and you see they're just talking about different events or different blogs, and then all of a sudden you see a post that says on sale now, 50% off. So that type of post isn't a right hook. It's a punch in the face. And like every punch in the face, even if you've just been jabbing away and people are kind of letting their guard down, in boxing you always protect your face, like always. So when you go straight, the hands are still up. Like you might have been jabbing down here, you might have been working on that rib cage, but the hands are still up here. And so you never want to do a punch in the face. So a right hook has to be a call to action that is consistent with the native format of the platform. Okay, yeah, that's a little wordy, but essentially it's just a stronger jab. That was my big takeaway from how he explained the difference between the two. And you should not operate as if jab, jab, jab equals right hook. You might have to do 15 jabs. You might have to do 20 jabs. You might have to do 7 months of jabs before you do a soft right hook to get someone to on board with you. And the point is to focus on the jabs because you're playing the long game. And if anything, in this book, he gives examples of people, all they did was jabs, and they were successful. All they did was jabs, and they were successful. You don't always have to explicitly try and force your product or what you're selling down your audience's throat on social media. It's really about these little micro what he likes to call micro content. So think of it as a difference between writing a Neil Patel style 2,000 word blog post, which I still think is valuable. It's just a different part of your marketing strategy versus a 10-second Snapchat video, where the jabs are like those 10-second Snapchat videos, but you have to put just as much thought into them as you did with that 2,000 word blog post. So just because it's shorter doesn't mean it could be crummy. Like it still needs to be good. And so that's the big takeaway here is think smaller with your content, think smaller, more frequent, but don't give up that value the same value and effort you describe and put into a 2,000 word, in-depth blog post. You're just taking that same effort, and that's one of the final chapters is effort. You're taking that same effort and applying it to all of those little micro not microtransactions, because that's little micro touch points, if you will, because you want to increase the number of jabs, quality jabs, as much as possible. So even though it's just a little tweet or it's just a little thing on Instagram or Snapchat, you need to put that effort and ascribe value to that and provide value in those, and just consistently hammer away. It's like chipping at a block of ice. You're just chipping away, and eventually, you can come down really hard and knock off a big chunk, but you're never going to go to the center of the ice block and then just try and break it from there, because, well, it's not going to work, or it's just going to shatter the ice, and then you don't have an ice sculpture or whatever you're working on. So that's kind of it's kind of a silly example, but it just gets at the point. And you know what? I'm guilty of that too. I promote my Kindle ebooks on my Facebook page a lot, and that's probably more of a punch in the face than a right hook. So I'm definitely going to have to change the way I'm doing that. So definitely not off the hook. Like I'm reading this book, I'm learning just like you guys, and so there's a personal example of where I have misinterpreted what a right hook should be. And with that, it's time for me to get to work. Writer's block. We've got 3 ad variations trying to figure out. And I'm recording this because I am now procrastinating. My brain is telling me that it wants to take a break because what it's doing is hard. And don't follow my example here, but one of the things I've found is if you just stay focused and push. I mean, I'm just staring at the screen at this point because I'm trying to write these ads for the client. And when you force yourself, even if you don't find anything that's really, even if you don't come up with anything that's really productive, at least you start training your brain that you're not going to go check Facebook, or you're not going to go check your phone, if you will, or turn on the video camera and start vlogging instead of working, right? So focus, focus, focus. Back to work. All right, I am now in a much better mood. Computer did not freeze like it did earlier this morning. Got a solid 3-hour block of work in, and now I'm awake. One of those things where you just get a little bit of you get a tiny win in the beginning of the day. Earlier this morning, computer crashed. What are you gonna do? Had to walk around the block a little bit. Now I am feeling energized and refreshed because I actually got something done. I was able to X something off my task list. So now it's time to take a quick 5-10 minute break, reply to some comments and emails, and then dive right back in to Excel now. So done with all the copywriting for the day. I try to get all my creative stuff done earlier in the day, and then if I'm playing with Excel or numbers, that's pretty fun for me and doesn't require the creative side of my brain so much, just more a lot of hotkeys and typing. So that's always fun. All right, wrapping up a really productive day. Came back, got some more work done, had an impromptu phone call with some co-founders, kind of shifting the direction. Them essentially telling me I've got a little bit more work to do. So I'm going to sign off here. I've got some wonderful quesadillas my wife graciously cooked for me. And until next week, keep building the business you love. Take care.